My stream continues to be dog shit quality. I'm very sorry about this. Considering that I'm giving myself an actual schedule to stream, I should be doing this a lot better soon. Should be getting some friends to join call soon as well. Let's see what's going on. So Zygarde's going to be really tough for a human to deal with the lead he's put out, but Genesect is a relatively free switch-in. It doesn't like taking a Diamond Storm, so I expect SMB to go for something like Thousand Arrows Trigger. Like, that's the level 1 play, that's the thing you expect to see when you see this lead, but the problem is that Bulu kind of shuts that down from the DNC side. So you might see something like Thousand Arrows. Ooh, Switch in Scrafty Protect is also quite reasonable. Gonna get up the Toxic Spikes from Anosh, so really interesting tech. I've been testing that with him all week, and it's worked out pretty well. It's kind of hard for SMB's Pokemon to deal with this. I'm not sure if I really expect Anosh to get up the second layer. The second layer is really strong against P2, the Bulu, but he might just want to preserve his Nihiligo's potential Focus Sash, might want to get an Intimidate out for the first turn of Trick Room. But no, Inosh really, just putting some damage out into the DNC. Recognizes DNC is a massive threat, doesn't really have many answers, wants to prepare it so that Bulu isn't the only tool that he has to take it out. Makes sense. Yo, Nails joining us. What's up, Nails?
The T-spikes are very up.
You're not wrong. What do you think about the decision to not get the second layer up?
Probably fine. The second layer, it would be nice for P2, but it's probably not necessary.
The other thing that I noticed about the second layer is that it really helps because it really helps counteract the double grassy terrain we got going on. So one layer is just, you take 6% each turn, accounting for grassy terrain. But when you have 2 layers up, it's your Pokemon die real quick.
Eventually, but eventually. Yeah, instead of not dying. Counteracting grassy terrain is still strong.
That is true. It's counteracting grassy terrain and then some. So P2 will be taking constant damage, and everyone knows that it's really hard to knock out P2 until Trick Room runs out and it's at like 60. The biggest problem with Porygon 2 is that on the last turn of Trick Room, it gets hit, and then it comes out of Trick Room and it wants to reset Trick Room, and then it gets hit again. But here, we see the Grassy Seed Necrozma gonna be taking a critical hit from that Diamond Storm, not gonna be great for its health, but, and it just gets blown away. This is Min Speed Charizard, and Nosh was not prepared for that in the slightest.
Yeah, that's,
I think you have to think that was kind of greedy.
I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying there wasn't too much the level switch, I guess.
A human could have used Fake Out on turn 4.
Yeah, it could have. Okay. I don't know what's up with that then. Like, yeah, that just seems really disrespectful, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. Based on my knowledge of the team, it is in fact a Calm Mind Necrozma variant, but it just seems to me that it takes way too much from an overheat, even if Necrozma is at +1 special defense. Now, that critical hit from DNC, was unfortunate. Would have done roughly 15% otherwise. But if you Fake Out, get your Calm Mind up, and then you Moonlight to heal back to full, I think that would have been a lot better of a line of play than the one that Nosh ended up going for, which sacked his Necrozma for no good reason and put him really far behind in this game.
Yeah, the Zygarde's gonna be a problem. He just like has 3 ground weakness, and Grassy Terrain doesn't help with that.
Yeah, this.
I don't know what else to say. Like,
So this is still
the second
potential.
Trick Room is going.
Oh yeah, the second Trick Room is going up. Getting in that Scrafty on the last turn of Trick Room, really strong from SMB. The fake out, the threat of the 1,000 arrows was really massive there. And Inosh misses the poison for the second time. A little bit unfortunate. If he had gotten the poison on the first one or even the second Sludge Bomb, I think he might have been able to be in a good spot right now. But as it stands, not looking good at all. DNC at +4 defense is going to have a really easy time running through Human's team.
Yeah, just dealing with the DNC is not where you want to be on turn 7 when you've already given up 1 knockout to the Zard.
And with the second Trick Room up.
Yeah.
Just quite unfortunate.
It's a team-dependent choice, but if the DNC was setting up, and if the Nihilego was setting up rocks, maybe it would have at least helped with Zard. But that's not really fair to say, because I don't know. I'm just trying to think about...
Bulu reveals Fighting Z, not even enough to take out the Scrafty when Bulu's at -1. And Scrafty, it's taking a little bit of poison chip, but it's at a very healthy 50%. And it's also high jump kick, which is interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yes, SMB used a high jump kick against me when we played in Snake. It was his way of making Scrafty, which is really important for Trick Room teams. They often really appreciate the fake out and the slightly extra bulk Scrafty has over Incineroar, while also not really needing the fire type. It allows Scrafty to take the position Incineroar does, which is a fake out user that also deals damage. And 27% to Tapu Bulu, it's not nothing. It's not enough, but it's not nothing.
Yeah, my solution to that problem was to give correct foul play, and that was pre-Incineroar, and I was using it in VGT, and it does a lot of damage to Metagross and Landorus, and that's another cool way to do it. High jump.
High jump kick is also nice because it helps deal with the Pokemon that's a bit more important post Incineroar, which is Incineroar. Incineroar, despite not being particularly slow, often a massive bane for Trick Room teams. The ability to come in, intimidate, fake out, waste roughly 2 turns of Trick Room, if not more, is really frustrating. And so Scrafty's there, it's just like, switch in on me, I dare you. Incineroar doesn't carry Protect most of the time. It just gets high jump kicked. And Human going for the double Protect here, it looks like it's not going to work out, and it looks like he's going to be in a really bad position for the rest of the game. DNC's Clear Body ability, meaning it can't be intimidated by either the Incineroar or the potential Mega Manectric, although you have to assume it's Mega.
It's a Mega, but... this just looks like a beatdown, and Ash hasn't been able to execute anything that he's wanted to, and...
He tried to cheese SMB, and SMB said, no, man, I'm playing real Pokemon, you gotta play real Pokemon with me. He hasn't switched out DNC since turn 1, it's taken a grand total of 25%. Inosh has attacked twice, 3 times this whole game. Besides, he would hammered into a Protect, Sludge Bombed, U-turned, got a Power Gem off onto a Zygarde, Sludge Bombed again, and all out pummeling the Scrafty. And that's nothing over the course of 9 turns. Manectric going to Protect here, doesn't want to take the Diamond Storm, which is doing so much work against SMB's team, but that Genesect not going to like these attacks. Not one bit. And you have to think that's game over.
Yeah, there's just so much to come back from.
I can't see a way. I can't see a path to victory. There's nothing. There's just nothing.
There's still a Porygon 2 and a Charizard.
Not even that. There's the Zygarde. There's a Porygon 2 and a Zygarde,
Oh yeah, the Zygarde.
Zygarde's at like 80.
There's only one Pokemon that can even pretend to fight the Zygarde. Wow.
It's the Genesect, and it's at 12, and it needs to switch out, and it's going to switch out into a Pokemon that gets KO'd by Diamond Storm or a Pokemon that gets KO'd by Diamond Storm. I don't see what human can do against a potential Diamond Storm knockoff into the high jump kick into the Genesect because it's revealed it's Scarf by Grassy Terrain activation, and also it's kills the instant aura on the switch in. But SMB decides 95%, it's good enough for me. Wants to get in the Zygarde, potentially have the fake out later. Very safe play.
Worst case scenario, he missed it and he had a plus on the field. Like, it still was fun.
I mean, worst case scenario, he missed it and there was a Bulu on the field, which gets knocked out by extreme speed. So...
yeah. Oh, there's a dodge. Doesn't help. Cornish. You just got check out.
I don't like that Diamond Storm from DNC. It didn't matter.
I probably don't either.
Like, I can critique SMB's plays from... I can critique... No, he should just triggered. I can critique SMB's plays from here to the end of time at this point, but it genuinely does not matter. There is nothing that human can do to come back from this. If he comes back from this, he is the best Pokemon player of all time, bar none. There is no better Pokemon player ever than one who can come back from this position.
I'll give it to him. Yeah. If he freezes every mon, that still isn't enough.
He can't, because the Porygon 2 is poisoned.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the crit. There's the first crit, but Snarl's going to take out the DNC. The Porygon's going to have that reduced special attack, but I don't think that's going to be enough.
There's at least 1,000 arrows coming his way.
And, Zygarde's coming in. P2 wants to switch out, reset that special defense, special attack drop. Manectric needs to protect from the 1,000 arrows, but it's going to be enough to knock out that Genesect. Probably running reduced defense nature with that Scarf set. And Human, the 3K pick, the 3K Lord, we thought he would put a big splash into MPA, but SMB, just like he did to me in Snake, saying, hey, this is SPL. This is Doubles OU. You've never played this tier before. I'm good at this tier, and I'm going to show you how it's done. Nosh tried to cheese him out with a CM Necrozma, and SMB just brought a team where every Pokemon did damage.
Yeah. You kind of hate to see that, but
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. Nosh is my friend, but that's, like, that's how...
He just didn't get to execute his team. Like,
yeah.
From a neutral standpoint,
I think, I just think, I don't know. I wasn't in a position to criticize Human's team, but what we've seen from SPL this week, not just in doubles, not just in, but in singles as well, across all sorts of tiers, is that the teams that have been winning are the teams that do stuff. Aggressive teams do well. If you're in position, putting out damage, you seem to be in the driver's seat right now. After Mega Gengar honestly made the format a lot more defensive. It was a very strong offensive threat, but it made it so that there were...
shut down all the other threats.
Yes, precisely. You couldn't really run... It was very difficult to run non-hyper offense through Mega Gengar. You couldn't run like a mid-offensive team. And even if you tried, Gengar would probably trap it in, fake it out, Sludge Bomb it to death, and then you wouldn't have a team anymore.
Hello?
Hey Chris. How are you doing?
You're fine to join.
We're on stream. I was streaming a Nosh versus SMB, and
we're gonna stream Void. No, I can't. Sorry. Well, we're literally streaming right now. Just say hi. Okay. Well, I gotta go though. I just wanted to see if you guys want to talk about anything more later.
I think what happened is Anosh tried to defensively cheese, and it wasn't he wasn't doing stuff. And you saw SMB set up the Trick Room, and in Trick Room you want to be able to do something. right? You want to be able to do something against a DNC. And Inosh just didn't have any DNC checks.
I think that if he'd managed to get his pawn mind off, then it could have been a totally different game.
Yes, and the greed was real in that game. I think that turn was the game-deciding turn. I mean, obviously, Necrozma is what the team was built around. And it beats a bunch of, the straightforward metagross stuff, but SMB knows that, the straightforward metagross stuff, just a bit too easy to counter in the current meta. Everyone's looking at it just a bit too hard, and brought some, kind of rogue Charizard Trick Room, which isn't something I've seen quite often. What do you think about his team? Chris left.
Oh, Chris left. I can't say why it doesn't look cool. It looked a bit weird to see Charizard over Camelot, but...
Yeah, potentially the Charizard has Trick Room. Not Trick Room, Tailwind. And so when you're using Camel, you have to go all in on the Trick Room. And maybe you have your Charizard, Bulu, Zygarde, Tailwind offense.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
That's
P2 is fast enough to get Tailwind a little bit sometime.
Yeah, and Scrafty can probably take a little bit of advantage of Tailwind. Other benefits of Charizard is that it's a good mon and Camerupt is a bad one. That really doesn't hurt. Running good mons tends to be better.
The Rock's weakness would concern me, but I guess the rest of the team doesn't mind Rocks at all, so...
Yeah, you also have, your team's so active that you punish the Rocks getting set up pretty well. Rocks Lando tends not to be that strong, and also, you can lead P2 into Rocks Lando, which makes it really scared to set up Rocks, or you can lead Bulu into Rocks T-Tar, Bulu Scrafty into Rocks T-Tar, P2 Scrafty is pretty good, and the Rock's weakness does suck. But now we have Roscoe versus Void, so I don't know too much about Roscoe. Why don't you tell me a little bit about them and a little bit about this tier?
Where to begin? Good question. I'm gonna call in the support staff. Get Dave in here to tell some stories.
Get Dave on
stream? That is unfortunate.
So it looks like Liberty 32. Looks like Roscoe got his rocks up for free, and looks like he's going to be trying to set his spikes up. Clearly doesn't have looks like Roscoe doesn't have a Magnezone, otherwise probably would have gone it on turn 2. And looking at Void's team, considering that he has Jirachi and Skarmory, I would be shocked to see a Magnezone. So should be able to get up.
We can pretty safely, we can safely say the Void because, a third steal can happen. Steal's a really good type, especially for Gensec, because just resists everything.
Nerfs. Yeah.
Hippowdon tend to mean that there's no Magnezone, because Hippowdon goes on defensive builds.
So Roscoe gets up his first layer, but then taunts the Skarmory, knows that he doesn't want that third layer going up, and wants just 2 layers of his own. But gonna Whirlwind instead on the switch. Gonna send that Latias in. Recent drop to DPP from the ban list. What do you think about that in the first place?
The ban?
No, the unban.
I just think. Gear shift. I think that dragons tend to be really stupid in pre-fairy generation. So that's basically my thoughts on it. I wouldn't have done it, and I want to ban a bunch of dragons black and white too. But since it's here. It's probably not too stupid. Just we might be seeing more steel types in this.
So potentially a third steel type.
Notably is leftovers on his Latias and not
choice item. That is very interesting because my understanding is that most Latias tend to run, Specs, Scarf, maybe Trick, but leftovers maybe inclines me to think that it's more of a CM version. And Void's able to get his third layer of spikes.
Latias actually gets a fantastic Like, it can run Heal Ball, it gets Thunder Wave, it gets Wish, it gets a lot of really cool attacks. And can honestly use them. Like, it has all to pull it off. We probably won't be seeing that because there's a Blissey on our screen, which also gets all of those moves that I just mentioned.
And it looks like Void's running a stall team. I would expect Roscoe to also have a ghost type, considering that he wants to get all these hazards up as kind of a spin blocker.
Yeah.
And definitely, and also has Clefable for that magic guard switch into spikes, which is really nice. Interestingly enough, Pokemon used to still run knockoff in this generation, despite the fact that it doesn't have the increased base power. So, knockoff in later generations, if you're running it on support Pokemon, doesn't really do damage, It's not really about doing damage to Blissey.
Pokemon in gens 3, 4, and 5, because
well, yeah. I'm saying that like even in later gens, people. So was knockoff used before it got buffed?
It was not. This is something that's come up since Gen 6 and.
So what happened was knockoff got buffed. People started experimenting with knockoff on all their Pokemon. They started experimenting with it first on the obvious ones, Bisharp, not Incineroar, but maybe a Landorus. But then they saw, wow, this isn't really about the damage. It's about the fact that my opponent doesn't have any items. And the way I've heard it described to me is it's a little bit like a status condition. You could be burned, you can be poisoned, you could just also not have an item.
You can be enough.
Yeah, and so that's why Thief is so strong in GSC, and that's why Knockoff is so strong in DPP. It's not about your opponent taking tons of damage from the knockoff. It's about your opponent not having any items left in. Roscoe going into a Powdon, but Void's just setting up the rocks, and it doesn't look like Roscoe has a spinner.
It's not early enough to say that. There's a Rotom on the screen. There's still 3 Pokemon on the back for Roscoe.
So do you think there's a space for a Starmie on this team?
Oh, there absolutely could be. Yeah. DPP is not my forte, but I can't see there's 3 layers up on the screen and he just let them go up despite having on his arm. I don't see him making that play without
having a spinner, considering that both these players are running a kind of stally team. And notice after the knock, Blissey's just taking 6% every turn. With those DPP sand mechanics, the pre-Gen 6 sand mechanics, this sand will last for the entirety of the game unless one of Void's Pokemon knows Rain Dance, or is Abomasnow. So we're going to be seeing almost every single one of Void's Pokemon. We're going to be seeing 3 of Void's Pokemon taking damage per turn, but the Rotom and Latias have leftovers to heal. If Roscoe can get the knockoff on either of them, that's going to be really useful for his long-term damage potential.
Yeah,
important thing to note, since this is Gen 4, Rotom is actually a ghost type. That's why we were talking about Rotom being relevant for spinners, because Rotom actually blocks Rapid Spin in this generation. For all of you VGC players out there.
At this point, it's just it's trying to see how each person's going to make progress.
And Roscoe choosing smartly to not knock off. Recognizes that Rotom's almost always going to go out into Blissey. Just seismic tosses. Wants to get a little bit of chip in.
Rotom can't risk staying in and losing its leftovers.
Yeah, Rotom's leftovers are really important.
I mean, all of the leftovers are really important.
Just Blissey doesn't have them anymore. Oh, and we see Void's last Pokemon. It's going to be that Nidoqueen. Wants to set up all 3 types of hazards available in this generation.
Yeah, Nidoqueen can do that moderately safely. It can't set up 2 layers on Powdon, but it might be kind of greedy to try to get its layer up here.
I really wouldn't try and set it up right now, but I'm sure there will be a time for Nidoqueen to get its layer up.
And honestly, it's threatening an Ice Beam to hit KO on Hippowdon right now.
Is it?
Uh,
I don't know what Nidoqueen does or
actually,
runs.
it probably won't be because it's approximately as strong as Blissey. Well, they have the same base special attack stat and probably are both never invested.
Yeah,
So,
I would expect Nidoqueen to be running physical investment because I don't believe it has access to sheer force in Gen 4. So you're going to see most Nidoqueen running Earthquake, Toxic Spikes, maybe Protect, but definitely running Earthquake for their ground damage, and probably just running, only Bulk. Not that important to deal too much damage with your Nidoqueen directly. Void indicating that he only uses teams his friends give him, and we are going to see Jirachi. So these teams are looking pretty similar. Got the ground type, sets up hazards. You got 2 steals, Rachi and Skarmory. You got your bulky normal, Clefable and Blissey. Yep, and then I don't know. It looks like I don't know if they look this similar. I would expect Roscoe to have a spin blocker, and probably not a spinner as his last mon. We are going to see the fifth mon Gliscor, which has been unbanned relatively recently due to a change in the Sandveil clause. I believe, unless that was in Gen 5.
It was never banned. The Sandveil clause was it was put in place because
Gliscor wasn't really unbanned. Frostlass was unbanned.
Yeah. Frostlass was banned for a while because no one cared about it, and then someone decided to care about Frostlass, so they just banned Sandveil. Or
they banned Sandveil and Snowcloak on Pokemon that didn't only have access to Sandveil or Snowcloak. And there are complaints about, this is too complicated bans and so forth. But honestly, I think for old gens, it's not that big of a deal to have complex bans because most of the rationale for not having complex bans applies to people trying to learn the gen, and not many people trying to learn old gens out here.
You're probably right. I'm in the camp that likes having a simple rule set, so...
Simplicity is good, but I genuinely don't think it's that big of a deal. So what ghost type do you...
Your case has honestly swung me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, but this is not the time to talk about Smogon tiering. It's the time to talk about what...
It's all a game. We can talk about anything we want.
That's fair. So what do you think Roscoe's 6th is?
That's a good question.
I think it has to be a ghost type, right?
It probably should be. There's a solid chance that it is.
It seems strange to me to run a team where most of the damage comes from hazards, but run no spin blockers.
A lot of the damage from this team is coming from the Clefable, perhaps, because it can knock stuff, and knock plus sand, it's already just a decent amount of damage if your opponent isn't doing anything. Okay.
It's a spinner. Interesting.
Yep.
And Roscoe's gonna need to recover with that Starmie if he wants to keep it around much longer. Blissey doing a ton of damage with that Seismic Toss. Does that say anything about the EV spread? I don't know.
It says that it's max HP Starmie.
It's max HP Starmie.
Yeah, I am quite sure.
Just hop into the damage calc and see what it says. There's no damage rolls to account for here.
Yep. Min HP Starmie is 261 stat, 100 261. Yeah, I'd be taking 38 from Satas.
And the Shroudum is Rest Talk,
probably, which we very much like.
Probably 4th move Thunderbolt on this Rotom, I would expect. But maybe not.
Yeah, people would make the most sense. It could be Discharge.
That's fair.
But, yeah.
And Rotom has burned its rest turns, but just gonna switch out, wants to preserve its HP, wants to preserve its leftovers, even though Roscoe, predicting that, goes for the Seismic Toss. Relatively safe.
Yes.
Oh, and the Blissy's gone. That's just it.
It's not a speed tie, yeah. It's just straight up gone.
Is it not a speed tie?
No. Clef didn't heal or take damage himself. Yeah. It just healed leftover. They've probably interacted before, and I just left them first.
Let's scroll through, see if we can
figure it out. Clefable's a solid amount faster than Blissey.
I don't think they have interacted before, but I expect that Blissey is not speed invested to outspeed Clefable. So it looks like Roscoe is going to be taking advantage in this game, but Void's able to trick the Choice Scarf onto the Hippowdon. That might be able to give him the advantage, especially if he can get in his Nidoqueen and set up these Toxic Spikes. Well, no, Toxic Spikes don't do anything.
Hippowdon is not as crippled by a choice item as it might appear to be. Like, I guess with 3 layers of spikes, it is. But in general, Hippowdon can survive a little bit.
I think that, yeah, Toxic Spikes, but Toxic Spikes only really hits the Hippowdon on Roscoe's team.
It also hits the Storm, which is nice. It puts it on a timer every time it comes. It's taking 37 from Hazard, and then another 12% from Toxic Spikes. So
that's a
really
lot.
Makes. Yeah, it's if you switch it indirectly, it's taking actually 50% on the.
And this is just kind of a good position for Clefable to go in, though. Void no longer has a knockoff switch in. He was able to, use the Blissey to switch into knockoffs for as long.
He can actually, he can take a knockoff with Jirachi and then trick something else just to steal it.
So you think Void's going to use the Clefable's knockoff against it?
I don't know that he will, but that is a potential.
So Jirachi gets knocked off, tricks the Clefable, steals the Clefable's leftovers.
Yeah, but right now we're just seeing a Jirachi try to flinch on a scar, and he is currently 3 flinches away. It didn't work, but he tried.
And got the roost off. Okay.
Throwing out tricks willy-nilly, of course, is all.
I would like to get another... Oh, what? Because it's Scarf Jirachi, it's Iron Head, Fire Punch, U-turn. It's doing a ton of damage, but the crit gonna show that there's a chance for Skarmory to, roost off the damage. Doesn't want to risk it right here, especially because of Iron Head flinches. And the Burn.
He just starts Iron Head.
Because Burn got buffed in Gen 3. Gen
Burn
2?
got buffed. Okay, brief history. Burn and Poison were 1/16 per turn in RBY, and then they got weakened, or they got buffed with the introduction of leftovers in Gen 2. So at the time, it was still, with everything running leftovers, it was still just 0.25 per turn. My sidebar has to take a break, though, because that was a big turn.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a few seconds. I just have one question first. In DPP, there's no way this Nidoqueen also has Stealth Rock, right?
And you're not going to run double rocks.
So that means that, Roscoe has taken off rocks, but also has made it impossible for him to remove Toxic Spikes. Something that's not going to be that big of a deal, considering that the only Pokemon affected by them is Hippowdon, but probably going to try and get 2 more layers up with this Skarmory.
Yeah, unless Jirachi has something to say about it.
Jirachi always has something to say about it.
Jirachi very reasonably could have something to say about it, yeah. Getting the burn on the first try was... because it just might save him the 3rd layer.
And just going to switch out, doesn't want to risk anything. Going into his Choice Scarf, Hippowdon, which I don't think is faster than Jirachi at this point, so he'll get knocked out if Ironhead flinches. But Void recognizes that he wants to switch, U-turns into the Skarmory, gonna start getting his layers up, unless Roscoe's Jirachi has something to say about it, and I imagine it might.
No, it probably won't.
Oh, it's Body Slam.
It's leftover Skarmory on Void's side, and presumably Shed Shell on Roscoe's side. So that's a big difference. The healing, just Void's Skarmory, even paralyzed, won't have any issues fighting.
Looking in the Biggs chat, Winsong says the only way Void wins is with Jirachi Magic. I'm not sure I understand why that's the case.
There could be some Latias magic going on. But it's going to be really, really awkward to get through the Ghost score. So he's not really wrong. And Void needs... the Jirachi magic is mostly necessary to get through the Clefable. Because Clasheth is a big issue.
Smart play from Roscoe, earthquaking the Nidoqueen switch in, recognizing that Rotom is not likely to have Hydro Pump with its first 4 moves, and just, trying to put out some damage, and gonna Ice Fang this leftover Skarmory for 0 damage.
Yeah. Void is honestly in a position where he's trying to stall out the Tumpy. Switching to Nidoqueen is not going to be good, though.
It does threaten the Ice Beam, and Nidoqueen only takes 6% for switching in. It's like maybe that's okay. Yeah, it only took 6% net. Because it recovered twice. Oh, no. It took...
Yeah, it took like...
12. No.
It took about 10%. It took 22 on the switch, and then it healed for 12.
Yeah, it took about 10% to switch in and Ice Beam Clefable for 5. So, not a good trade for Void. But, not really sure what he can do at this point. It's going to be really hard for him to get the damage in. The spikes are going to be nice to beat the Jirachi, but this Hippowdon, Choice Scarf Hippowdon's putting in work. And looks like Roscoe finally wants that 3rd layer. And he's going to get it. Skarm at full health. Rocks and 3 layers up. That means that every time Nidoqueen switches in, it'll be taking 31%.
It's gonna be on a really, really low timer.
And Roscoe taking the advantage to go for the taunt. Doesn't want to get whirlwinded out, and knows that Skarmory can't be knocked out on the switch-in because he has removed the possibility of Stealth Rocks. I'm not sure when he'll be able to get Skarmory back in, but if he gets whirlwinded out into it, free roost.
No, if he gets whirlwinded out into it, it might die burn because of the way that ES displays hit points numbers. We just don't know if it's going to be it. Actually, we can check that.
And Void lets the knockoff go off onto the Latias. He is going to have to pick a target and decides Latias is the one he wants. Going to go for Safeguard. I'm not sure what the point of that is.
This is potentially pretty cool. It prevents it from getting Thunderwaved. It can heal through some of the Seismic Toss damage, though, it's going to start Calm Minding. I'm not sure that it can actually win long-term against us, though, without its leftovers.
Especially considering the Body Slam doesn't matter because of the Safeguard.
Yeah. Well, the Body Slam is just damage. It's not...
Okay, that Dragon Pulse made no sense to me.
He probably just wanted a damage kill.
Oh, no. Void was,
he wanted to prevent...
he was knocking out the Skarmory on the switch-in. Smart play from Void. Recognizing, there's no reason to take any risks here. We will make sure that there's no full health Skarmory to whirlwind me out. Very strong play. And now I'm gonna want to see a Safeguard here, and Void thinks so too.
You just loop Safeguard every
6 turns, 5 turns, every 5 turns.
Okay.
But this Ironhead's putting in work. I don't think Void will be able to push through this Jirachi quickly enough.
With no cards he can technically set up on it. I am concerned that it might not be like from Void's perspective. It definitely can't out-heal all of the damage that is coming its way. But if it avoids getting crit, it can potentially get set up, yeah.
Okay, so
no, actually it can't. It runs out of recovers too. Yeah.
So Void takes 31% every turn. So he's recovering 19 every turn he recovers.
This Latias does not have enough health. The knockoff is putting in how much mileage
and the
right
safeguard, and he has to go for safeguard every 5 turns. He was able to get 1 Kind Mind off between the last safeguard. So you safeguard, recover, Calm Mind, recover, safeguard. So here, Void should be able to go for Calm Mind. I think you have to decide, I'm never getting crit with this Latias. If you get crit...
Honestly, you might just have to start greeting for an extra Calm Mind or something while safeguard is up.
Void just goes for the recover here. Going to put himself at actually a pretty safe health. I think that recover was actually alright. And just switches out. Says, I don't have the PP for this, but surely that means that there is no way for him to outdamage this Rachi with that Latias. Going to be really tough for him to do.
He needs to get a burn.
And so tell me about the interaction between Whirlwind and Wish.
The Whirlwind and what?
Wish.
You Whirlwind out to a Mon, and then that Mon gets...
So,
Wish goes after all moves have been made, and Whirlwind is just the last.
So Roscoe, hoping for the paralysis or for the misplay from Void, doesn't get either. Skarmory's not going to get healed from that Wish, and I'm sure that Roscoe really wished that it would.
Honestly, he doesn't.
You're allowed
really
to hit
Skarmory
by the way.
too badly. He still has Gliscor as a taunt user.
He has double taunt.
Yeah, and the
Any clue what the last move on Skarmory is?
It should probably be Brave Bird. He just hasn't had a great chance to click it.
Skarmory tend to run Brave Bird in DPP to help deal with Breloom, perhaps?
Yeah. Skarmory just... It's a strong attacking up.
Okay.
In later gens, I suppose there aren't as many things. But yeah, and the fact that it's staying in reveals that it's a problem.
1 second. Let me just message Milk.
Oh, okay. It's counter. That is. Well, that's an interesting option. Like. It's an interesting option for the it's the Skarmory might actually be able to install a lot of Gliscor since the Gliscor when Skarmory gets taunted on a Whirlwind, it doesn't waste a PP on that turn, and also his paralyzed burns less. The Skarmory...
No, the Skarmory doesn't burn out the PP. So on average over 2 turns, Skarmory burns 3/4 times 2, right? So he burns 1.5 PP of counter for every 1 PP of taunt. And 1.5, and so Skarmory is currently at 29 counters. Gliscor at 25 taunts. That 1.5 margin is definitely gonna be positive for Gliscor, even if he goes for some Ice Fang flinches here or there.
Yeah. Okay. I guess. Okay. Or I can use taunt. Not fully taunted. Or not taunted. You get what I mean?
Yeah, so having only...
It also, Well, okay, the other thing is that Skarmory doesn't have leftovers, and so it's taking damage. And so it just gets whittled down.
Until it has to roost. How did it lose its leftovers?
It got knocked.
Fable is a good Pokemon.
Knockoff is apparently a good move.
Knockoff is a really good move. I cannot get behind that failed taunt.
It should be fine.
It shouldn't matter, but I can't get behind it. Oh, right, there's counters coming out from the Skarmory. Going to be able to do a little bit of chip damage. And obviously, Roscoe does not want to burn all of his Earthquake PP on nothing, knowing that this Gliscor is going to be useful in taking down that Nidoqueen. Which all of his other Pokemon actually have a little bit of trouble dealing with. I don't think I can see anything. Oh, Skarmory just gets killed, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's too much for Void to do, other than the aforementioned Jirachi magic.
And I'm not sure Jirachi has enough magic to get through this Gliscor, this blue-faced baby.
Fire Punch is a Fire Punch getting off a burn would completely change this. If Gliscor was taking Pip every turn and doing slightly less with the Ice Fangs, that would be enough. But barring that,
yeah, the Skarmory's just slowly getting whittled down. Roscoe putting in the work with this Gliscor. Does Taunt stay if you're paralyzed? Hold up.
Taunt turns get burned while paralyzed.
He was taunted for 3 turns, though, after the first taunt. So taunt went turn 91, 92, 93, but then 94, 95, 96, 97. Okay. So it's actually even easier for Roscoe to PP stall. This game is so over. Very smart play with the Starmie. I think Roscoe correctly identified Gliscor beats his whole team. All I need is to make sure that rocks aren't up so my Skarmory and my Gliscor can switch in freely. Gets those down, trades his Starmie for it, but only makes sure to do that once Blissey gets knocked out. And then he says, hey, easy. Gliscor cleans the game. Rachi cleans the game. Clefable cleans the game. There is nothing left for Void. I think that was very smart play from Roscoe.
Yeah. Okay, Void recognizing his win condition is our burning thing. Or flinching thing.
And I think Roscoe should just go for the Earthquake here.
Yeah, you just say burn me. Okay.
Flinch me. And there was no flinch, and the Rachi is down, so there's only a few Pokemon left for Void. What does he think can do it? Does he think it's the Nidoqueen? Does he think it's the Latias? Or does Void just say X?
Right now, Void's best option is hoping his teammates win.
Is hoping what?
Hoping that his teammates win. That's his play right now. Fortunately, it's SPL, so losing one game does not cripple your team. And I think his team still has a lead on that.
I think I'm gonna hop off this cast for now.
Yep.
I'm gonna try and and Roscoe correctly taunting the Latias, gonna be able to get a Thunder Wave off onto anything except for the Nidoqueen that switches in. So I might go for a knockoff here, but this game is pretty over.
It's extremely over.
I'm gonna hop off and prepare for my own set, which should be coming up in 12 minutes.